Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're talking about Michele Carey. She was an actress who, get this, shot John Wayne, kissed Elvis, and then, at the absolute height of her career, she just vanished. And that's the big question, right? Why would a rising star, someone with A-list friends, tons of work, just completely disappear from the public eye? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So at 44 years old, Michele Carey just walked away from Hollywood. And for the next 32 years, nobody really knew why. I mean, this wasn't one of those slow fades from the spotlight. Nope, this was a choice. You know, to really get a grip on why she disappeared, we have to understand something crucial about her. Michele Carey didn't just live one remarkable life. It turns out she lived at least three. Her first life, well, it didn't start under stage lights at all, but in a concert hall. See, before Hollywood, there was the piano. And she wasn't just good. At only 13 years old, Michele was a prodigy. We're talking about performing the super difficult Paganini variations to win a gold medal at Chicago's Soldier Field. I mean, a future in classical music seemed like a sure thing. Then, of course, came her second life. This is the one most people know her for, the actress. She was starring alongside the biggest names you can imagine: John Wayne, Elvis Presley, Frank Sinatra. She was on the fast track to becoming a household name. And this is where her incredible knack for reinvention really shines. After she left Hollywood, she started a third career, a totally hidden one. She became the super successful real estate mogul, buying, fixing up, and selling homes in some of California's fanciest neighborhoods. Okay, so how does a piano prodigy end up sharing the screen with John Wayne? Well, her path to Hollywood was, let's just say, anything but conventional. Her story is really one of incredible resilience. She was born Michelle Lee Henson in 1942. Her dad was a total powerhouse, a three-time NCAA wrestling champ who went on to become a surgeon. But then, at just 17, Michelle became a single mother. And instead of letting that define her, in 1964, she packed everything up, took her young son Kevin, and moved to Los Angeles, totally determined to make her own way. And her rise in Hollywood was just meteoric. I mean, look at the timeline. She gets to LA in 1964, a single mom, knows nobody. Just 1 year later, the legendary director Howard Hawks casts her in El Dorado. By 67, the movie's out, and boom, Michele Carey is a star. It was an absolutely incredible climb. All right, so let's get into the peak of her acting career and the truly iconic Hollywood legends she got to share the screen with. So you can just picture this. It's her first day on the set of El Dorado. She keeps calling him Mr. Wayne. Finally, he stops everything, looks right at her, and goes, "It's Duke, or nothing." The whole crew just bursts out laughing. The ice was totally broken, and from that moment on, he was just Duke. I mean, her list of co-stars is a literal who's who of Hollywood legends. In 1968, she kissed Elvis Presley in Live a Little, Love a Little, and they totally bonded over their love for music. She starred opposite Frank Sinatra, and get this, she had this amazing 50-year friendship with actor Earl Holliman, and they worked together on animal rights causes. So she was working all the time, she was connected, she was respected. And then a phone call came, a call that would turn out to be one of the biggest regrets of her life. It was John Wayne on the phone. He called her personally. He was getting ready to film True Grit, and he wanted her for the part of Maddie Ross. He trusted her to do it. But, and this is a huge but, Michele was already locked into a contract for another movie called Changes. She had to say no. She had to turn down what became an Oscar-winning role in one of the most famous westerns of all time. So after years of working nonstop, the kinds of roles she was getting started to change, and so did Michele's focus. And that brings us to the next chapter of her life, her deliberate, total retreat from the public. We're talking about the 32 years of silence. Her last film credit? It was a horror movie, back in 1986. And after decades of steady work in TV and film, with friends who were still at the top of the A-list, she was just gone. But here's the thing, she didn't just retire. She totally reinvented herself. She became a really successful real estate investor, buying, fixing up, and selling homes in places like Beverly Hills, the Hollywood Hills, and Malibu. And what's so crucial here is that she never used her Hollywood past to get a leg up. She built this whole new life completely on her own terms. You know, sometimes a major world event can completely change your personal life. That's what happened here. After the 9/11 attacks, Michele Carey, who already wasn't a big fan of flying, made a final decision. She would never get on a plane again. And this decision led to this incredible ritual. To go visit her elderly parents in Fort Collins, Colorado, she would set off on this epic solo drive all the way from her home in Newport Beach, California. She'd make an overnight stop in the little town of Richfield, Utah, and then keep going to her destination. And this is where you just see her fierce determination. We are talking about a drive of more than 1,000 miles, one way. And she did this trip all the time, usually alone, well into her 70s. It's wild when you think about it. It was the same route that first brought her to Hollywood all those years ago, now serving a completely different purpose. And that brings us to the final chapter of her story. A life that was lived truly on her own terms, right up to the very poignant and tragic events of her last few years. It's just heartbreaking. In a devastatingly short period, just 13 months, her whole world was turned upside down by loss. In November 2017, her only son Kevin passed away at 57. Just a few months after that, her father Stanley died at the amazing age of 101. And then by November of 2018, Michele herself was gone at 76. Maybe the best way to really understand her is through her own words. This was her personal mantra, something she wrote in a script once. She said, "Between the first tear and the last smile, let's live for the time we're alive." And that philosophy really seems to capture her entire journey, doesn't it? From piano prodigy to actress to businesswoman. So her story really leaves us with this powerful question. She walked away from fame, she reinvented herself over and over, and she lived with this fierce, quiet independence. It really makes you stop and think, what does it truly mean to choose your own life?